All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about the Amiga A500. And look, this wasn't just another beige box. We're talking about a full-blown cultural phenomenon that completely took over bedrooms all across the UK. This was the machine that defined a whole era of gaming and creativity, complete with that unforgettable click, whir of its floppy drive.
Yeah, this quote really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It was a total cultural shift. Think about it. While a lot of the world was looking at PCs for, spreadsheets and work stuff, the Amiga A500 was busy capturing the imagination of a whole generation of British gamers and creators. It was basically setting the stage for the entire 16-bit revolution over there.
So let's unpack this. How did this machine, the Amiga A500, which came out way back in 1987, become such a legend in the UK? Well, it wasn't just about the tech inside the box. It was about being in the right place at the perfect time and, well, winning a very, very important battle.
And that battle was the Great 16-Bit War. And let me tell you, it was fierce. You had the Atari ST on one side, which was a fantastic machine, no doubt, especially for musicians, right? They loved those built-in MIDI ports. But when it came to gaming, when it came to multimedia, the Amiga had this secret weapon, this hardware magic called the original chipset. It just gave it this incredible edge. The sound, the visuals, they felt like they were from the future.
And then, in October of 1989, you get this magic number, 399 pounds. Now, that wasn't just the price of a computer. Oh no, that was your ticket, your price of admission to what might be the single most famous marketing bundle in the history of UK computing. I'm talking about the Batman pack.
Honestly, this bundle was a stroke of genius. It wasn't just, here's an A500 in a box. No way. It was packed with 3 amazing and really different games. You had the massive movie tie-in with Batman, a serious flight sim with F-18 Interceptor, and a super fun platformer, the New Zealand story. I mean, it was this irresistible deal that sold more than 1 million units. It basically, almost overnight, turned the Amiga from this niche computer for hobbyists into the absolute must-have Christmas gift.
But here's the secret weapon, the real key to its success in the UK. It was this little silver box, the A5200 RF modulator. See, this little gadget lets you plug the Amiga straight to the family TV. You didn't need to buy an expensive separate monitor. And that, right there, was the perfect excuse to tell your parents, oh yeah, it's for my homework. When really, you and I both know it was for playing Lemmings all night.
Okay, so I keep talking about this hardware magic. What exactly was it? What made the Amiga so special under the hood? Well, to find out, we've got to look at its technical soul, its special sauce.
That special sauce was the original chipset, or OCS. Now here's the genius of it. Most computers at the time made their main processor, the CPU, do all the heavy lifting, but not the Amiga. It had a whole team of specialized chips, these co-processors, that handled all the graphics, sound, and memory stuff on their own. This freed up the main CPU, and it meant the machine could do things that just seemed impossible for a home computer back then.
And it was all about this trio of chips working in perfect harmony. Think of it like a band. You had Agnes, the conductor, managing all the memory and controlling this thing called the blitter, which could just blast graphics around the screen at unbelievable speeds. Then you had Denise, the artist, painting the screen with all these sprites in incredible colors. And finally, you had Paula, the musician, pumping out that iconic 4-channel stereo sound. This teamwork, this is what made it a true multimedia powerhouse.
But here's the thing. This amazing hardware wasn't just for playing games. It was an open invitation. It was practically screaming at a whole generation of bedroom coders all over the UK to stop just playing and start creating. The unofficial slogan for the machine was, "Only Amiga makes it possible." And for so many people, it really, really did.
And you can see the journey so many of them took. You could start out with something like Amos. It was this super user-friendly programming language you'd get for free on a magazine cover disc, right? You could make your first little animations with that. Then, maybe you'd move up to Blitz Basic to make something faster, something that looked professional enough to maybe even sell. And then, for the absolute wizards, there was 68,000 assembly. That was for talking directly to the metal, squeezing every last drop of power out of the machine.
So, you've got all this power, you've got this explosion of creativity. What does that lead to? It leads to a library of absolutely legendary games. And I'm not just talking about games that were good for their time. A lot of these are still held up as masterpieces of game design even today. Let's start with a big one, Lemmings. This was this totally unique puzzle game that came from a small studio up in Dundee, Scotland of all places. They were called DMA Design, and this little game of theirs would go on to take the entire world by storm.
And yeah, a masterclass is pretty much spot on. Lemmings was just perfect for the Amiga and its mouse. The whole idea of saving these little green-haired dudes was so charming, but the puzzles, oh man, they were fiendishly difficult. The whole thing was just completely and utterly addictive. Unforgettable.
All right, next up we have a game that, I promise you, football fans of a certain age will still argue about today, maybe with a tear in their eye. They will tell you this is still the best football game ever made.
And look, it is a massive claim, but it's actually kind of hard to argue with. You see, while modern games are all chasing photorealism, Sauce just focused on one thing: pure, unmatched gameplay. That top-down view, the incredible speed, the perfect control, it just felt like football. It captured the soul of the game. Plus, it had this huge player database, so it was a deep management sim too.
Okay, this next one was something else entirely. It was a mix of fast-paced, squad-based strategy, but with this surprisingly dark, satirical sense of humor about the whole idea of war.
Yep, war has never been so much fun. That's the famous line from the intro, and it really captures the game's chaotic spirit. But what people really remember is this incredibly poignant touch. After every mission, you'd go back to the menu screen, and a new little gravestone would appear on the hill for every single soldier you lost. It was fun, yeah, but it also made you think.
And finally, we've got to talk about a game from the Bitmap brothers. Now, this was a team that basically defined what cool meant in the 16-bit era. They just had this incredible style.
And this game, Speedball 2, was them at their absolute best. It was this futuristic, super violent sport, kind of like a mix of handball and pinball, but way more brutal. Everything about it, from the metallic graphics to the bone-crunching sound effects, and that famous ice cream sample, it just oozed style from every single pixel.
So here's the thing. When you put all of this together, you take the groundbreaking tech, you add in that whole bedroom coder scene, and you top it off with these revolutionary games, what you get is something so much more than just a computer.
I mean, sure, you can look at the specs. A 7 MHz processor, 4-channel stereo sound, a palette of over 4,000 colors. That stuff was mind-blowing for the time, no question. But these numbers, as impressive as they are, they really only tell a tiny, tiny part of the whole story.
Because this is the real takeaway. The Amiga A500 wasn't just a box you used to consume things, to play games made by other people. It was a machine for creation. It gave a whole generation the tools they needed to explore, to design, to build their own digital worlds, and they could do it all right from their own bedrooms.
So what gives a piece of tech a soul? It seems to be this rare mix, right? You need technical innovation that feels like actual magic. You need a creative community that just grabs hold of it and runs. And you need a cultural impact that leaves a legacy for decades. Which kind of leads us to one last big question to think about. In our modern age of totally closed, locked-down systems, could a machine with the open, creative spirit of the Amiga ever really happen again?